Good day, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. My name is Ndifon Ntui, and on this channel I make sewing tutorials. I post new videos every Wednesdays and Saturdays. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. If you're a beginner or if you're a person that wants to brush up on your skill, I offer online courses. I'm going to be showing a video on how to make a jumpsuit, and the video is supposed to help you decide if learning online is going to be convenient for you. So I hope you guys love the video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a nice day. Alright, you're welcome to another class. In this class I'm going to show you guys how to make the dress that you saw in the thumbnail. So to begin, the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to draft a bodice. And the first thing we're going to do is what we usually do. I'm going to keep ½ inch at the top. Okay, that's where I'm going to place my shoulder. Alright, from this line I'm going to find all my other vertical measurements. Alright, so I'm going to come at the top, from the top here, place my tape after the black line that we have there that I kept for my shoulder, and then I'm going to place all my other measurements. So the first one I'm going to place is my under bust length measurement. So the under bust length measurement I'm going to place is 14. Alright, and then I'm going to place 16 for where my half cut is going to be. And then if you are new to the channel, whenever I want to find my bust, instead of taking my measurements, instead of taking the measurement on the person where I take the shoulder to where the person's nipple is, I'm going to subtract 4 inches from my under bust length. Okay, so 1 2 3 4, and this way I'm going to place my bust. All right, so this works across a lot of sizes. So I'm going to simply roll a line so we don't get lost. Let me label everything out. So up here we have the shoulder. So now the next thing we're going to do is to place all our horizontal measurements. So these are measurements that fall across these lines. Okay, so the bust is 36. 36 divided by 4 is 9. Okay, remember the horizontal measurements are most times always divided by 4. All right, so I'm going to come here and place the bust measurements. 36 divided by 4 is 9. Okay, then come to your half cut. Don't place the under bust length on the under bust round. Come down to your half cut and place it. So your under bust round is 31. That's 7.75. all right, so 31 divided by 4 is 7.75. I'm going to make a mark at 7.75, and then I'm going to draw a line joining these two places together. So we found this. Now the next thing we're going to do is have to place our armhole. Okay, so to place our shoulder. We have not placed our shoulder yet. So to place our shoulder, we're going to come to the very top. All right, here we're going to place our shoulder measurement. Our shoulder is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So I'm going to place that there. Also, the person's shoulder is not straight, so we're going to have to slope the shoulder by 1 inch. All right, so I'm going to come to this place. I just marked where my shoulder stops, and I'm going to come down by 1 inch. All right, when you've done that, I need you to connect a line here. You're going to need to connect a line from here all the way down to here. All right, so that's what I'm going to do now. Now when I'm done with this, it's time to place our armhole. Alright, so now how do we get the armhole? We're going to have to divide our bust into 6 places. That bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. So 36 divided by 6 is 6 plus 1.5 is 7.5. So our armhole is going to be an armhole of 7.5 inches. So we're going to come from this line. You see where I'm placing the tape? I'm placing the tape on the 1 inch slope that we have now. I'm not placing it at the very top at the shoulder line here. I'm placing it at the point where we came down by 1 inch, which is what you should do. We're going to come down 7.5, make a mark. All right, and then we're going to draw a line from here to here. Okay, and out. All right, so at this point we're almost done. Now to draw the armhole curve, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the middle of my armhole. So if you divide 7.75 into 2, you should have 3.75. I'm going to come here and I'm going to make a mark there. Alright, so you see that when I make a mark there, I'm going to come in. You see this line? I'm going to come in now by ½ inch. Alright, and then I can simply use my curve to draw out the armhole. So Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start marking out the bust lines. Okay, now remember this is going to be a tube, so we will not even have a shoulder at all. So that if you guys have noticed, I have not mentioned anything like neckline width and neckline depth, because at the end of the day this won't have any neckline. So now the first thing we're going to do is I want you to place the bust point to bust point on all these lines. Okay, so the bust point to bust point, what we're going to place on all these lines, the bust point to bust point is her bust point to bust point is 7 divided by 2 is 3.5 plus half inch is 4. So I'm going to come to where 4 inches is, and I'm going to make a mark. All right, so I'm going to come to where 4 inches is here, and I'm going to make a mark here, I'm going to make a mark here, and I'm going to make a mark here. All right, so you see that I'm going to roll a line across here from the top to the bottom. All right, then next thing I'm going to do is, because I'm going to do padding on this, I'm going to draw a line half inch. See, this is my under bust length line that I have here. I'm going to come up by half an inch, okay, so that by the time I'm done padding, it will lift up her breast, and there will no need for her to wear a bra. So I'm going to come up, but please make sure you get your under bust length measurements right. If your under bust length measurement was not well taken and you now come up again by half an inch, it's going to make your bust too high. So make sure that you take your measurements for the bust well. If you do not take your measurement, watch my measurements on watch my video on how to take measurements for women. All right, so after you come up by this half inch, you're going to have to roll a line across the points. All right, so roll a line across the points, and then we are going to need to make the under bust curve. To make the under bust curve, this bust of 36 falls in the under bust curve range of 2 inches. Now when I say under bust curve, what does this mean? There's going to be a curve from the bust points here. It will open up to the under bust. That's going to help us make the bust to sit nicely at her under bust length. All right, inches, so we're going to use 2 inches for the under bust curve. So you see this from this line that I have here at this lift that we have done, I'm going to come in by 2 inches here, and I'm going to make a mark there. I'm going to come down, and I'm going to repeat the exact same thing at the bottom, and I'm going to make a mark there. All right, but I've done that. I'm going to roll a line joining the both of them together. All right, and then I'm going to make a curve from the bust out. You see this? I'm going to make a curve from here out, and that's going to give us the shape of the bust. Now the next thing is to work on the top part. All right, so now as for the top part, first of all, you have to know that once you pass 6 inches, they start showing some busts. All right, so what I'm going to do is this. As for mine, I want mine to have a bit of cleavage, so I'm going to come to the very top here. I'm going to make a mark at where 6 inches is. All right, look at where I'm placing the 6 inches from. I'm not placing it from the very, very top. I'm coming down a bit before I place my 6 inches. When I've marked my 6 inches, I'm going to draw. This 6 inches is going to serve as a border, telling me where to work and when where to exceed and when not to exceed. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to draw this line all the way up. You see this bust line that we have? That's this 4-inch line that we marked from the edge. We're going to need to draw that line all the way to the top. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to taper in the front. All right, so now I want it to have a sweetheart neckline, meaning it's going to come from here out to here and taper in back into the armhole. Now what I'm going to do to be able to achieve that is I need to know how deep I want the front to be. Now from once you pass 6 inches, you start to have some cleavage, and I want it to have some cleavage, so I'm going to come to 8 inches and I'm going to make a mark at 8 inches. All right, and then I'm going to simply roll a line from 8 inches up to 6, and then I'm going to curve out this part. Okay, I'm going to curve out this part straight out to my armhole. All right, because I don't want this to have any armhole at all. I want it to be a tube. Now that we have done that, it's now time to work on the top part, because now we have made this part here to sit nicely at her underbust round, but at her underbust length. But here at the top we have not done anything, meaning this part will not be balanced on the bust. So what we are going to do is this. Now you see this part, this edge of the line that we are working with, of this side. I want you to come from this 4-inch line. I want you to come inside here by half an inch. Okay, and this outer line, see this curved line, I want you to come outside here by 1 inch. Okay, draw a curve from this 1 inch to this bust point. draw a curve from the half inch to the bust point, sorry, then draw a curve from 1 inch to the bust point. All right, now we are done with the basic drafts. The next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to replace back all the measurements that we have taken from here. All right, so now you see this at this point here, we've taken away 1 inch. Okay, 1 inch and half inch. If you add 1 inch plus half inch, that's 1.5, plus the sewing allowance that you're going to work with 2.5. So I want you to first come out here and make a mark at 2.5 inches. Okay, by the time you do this here, by the time you add this 2.5 inches of allowance before you even start drafting up here, it's going to pay for whatever excess that you're supposed to have here. Now you see this part here, we took away 2 inches from here. Okay, took away 2 inches from here, and by the time we want to join it, we're going to consume the 2 inches plus the half inch that we're going to consume plus the 1 inch we're going to consume on both sides, because by the time we're joining this side here back to this side, we're going to consume half here, we're going to consume half here. So by the time you add that half plus half, that's 1 inch, plus the 2 inch we have here, 3 inches. So you're going to come here, you're going to pay back 3 inches. Now this is before we add our regular allowance. This point, this one I just added here now, it's not the main allowance that we're going to be working with. Okay, so by the time you've done this, you know that this excess here has paid for whatever you've taken away from here, and that's paid for joining them back together. Now the next thing you can do is you can now place the regular allowance that you normally keep. Okay, so if you keep 2 inches of allowance, keep 2 inches. If you keep 1.5, you can keep 1.5. For me, now I'm going to keep 1.5. I usually keep 2 inches. If you are new to the channel, I usually keep 2, but I'm going to keep 1.5 so that I don't have a lot of excess, because all this I have added has already paid for most of the sewing I'm going to do. So this 1.5, I'm just leaving some room inside in case the person goes to go and eat as if it was New Year festival and comes back to tell you after 3 months that please this dress that you made is very nice, so but it's not my size again. Can you just let me lose 1/2 inch on the side? Thank you, thank you. Now as I was being if you guys have noticed, I've added 1/2 inch at the bottom here. This is going to pay for the joining that we're going to use to add it to the gathers. All right, now it's time to cut it out. So I'm going to come from here first of all. So now this is all for the front. It's time for us to draft the back. So now it's time to draft the back. The back pattern is basically the same thing with the front. The only difference between the back and the front that you're going to notice is that you're going to need to keep 2 inches of zipper allowance before you start drafting. Okay, so just like what I always do. All right, I'm going to keep 2 inches. Make a mark 2 inches. This line I'm marking now is going to serve as my zipper allowance. And then after you have marked out this line, the next step is to draft a regular body. So nothing is going to change between the first bodies that I drafted before I started marking out the places for my bust. Nothing will change from what we did before and now. Now before I continue with my on the fast lane, if you guys notice, when I was taking all my measurements, my bust measurements, my under bust round measurement, I came from this line. Look at, for instance, my bust is 6. As I'm placing my bust, I'm placing it from this line. I'm not placing it from in front here. Okay, this line, this border that you have here, that's where all your measurements should start from. Even your shoulder measurement should start from this line in. Alright, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to draw a line from this armhole straight out. Okay, so from the armhole here, we're going to draw a line straight out. Remember, that's the front. Okay, this the side of the front that's going to meet with this doesn't have any elevation. Now by the time we want to start sewing, okay, this part here is going to be joined, this side is going to be joined to this side right here. So you see this part has to be the same height. Okay, this side here has to be the same height with the end of this side, because this is the side that's going to be joined to it, so there's not going to be any lifting of anything at the back. If you want the back to have any sort of U design or any curve or something, you can always implement that right now, okay? But I want my back to stay completely straight, okay? I don't have anything to do at that part. So what I'm going to do now is for my darts, okay, for the darts at the back, in case you are confused on how you would do about that, we're going to do the same thing we did. So 4 inches here, 4 inches at the very top, okay? Draw a straight line from top to bottom, and then at the bottom here, just going to be a ½ inch dart. So you see this line, I'm marking from this side, I'm marking ½ an inch to here. So from this line we have ½ inch here, ½ inch here. All right, okay, and then we're going to place all our measurements. So normally I was going to keep 1.5 inches for my allowance, but because of this allowance we've taken out from here, this one, I'm going to come down here, I'm going to place 3 inches here. Okay, I'm going to place 3 inches here, and then at the top here I'm going to place my 1.5 inches. Okay, this 3 inches is going to join for any excess that we have on the dart here. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do to the back, and the last thing we're going to do to the back, is to cut it out. Okay, now it's time to cut the fabric. Okay, so now the first thing you're going to do, the first part we'll cut is the first part, and the only part I'll show you guys how to cut is the center piece. Okay, so this is the center piece. If you notice, I've kept my fabric on the fold. I didn't keep my paper on the fold, but I've kept my fabric on a fold. All right, so you keep it on the fold. Take this edge here. Okay, so you see this edge that is here, that is straight, and also where the curve hits. Okay, this is the center. This is the part that will sit in the center of the bust. So you need this edge here to be sealed when you're cutting this part. I want you to place it like this. If you want, you can pin it on top before you cut it off, and then when you've placed it, cut it off. So with that, I have cut out the center piece. Look at how you see this curve, this V that we have here. Okay, that's going to be the sweetheart on the bust area. Okay, you can see the V at this point. Now I'm going to cut all my other sides. Okay, but because this side, when we are done, we need to have 2 pieces. You can put it on the fold, but the end must not be sealed like this. So I'll go ahead and cut the fabric for this part and for this part. Okay. Alright, so you can see this is the part I showed you guys how to cut. As for the side of the front, I've cut 2 sides. Okay, so you can see we have 2 pieces for the side of the front and also for the back. Alright, I've made a notch at my dart point. Alright, and that reflected on the fabric. Okay, for the back, the same thing. We have 2 parts here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pad this. Now this is the same thing I did. The way I'll pad this is the same thing I did in my video. How to pad an off-shoulder bustier. So I'm going to drop a link to that video here. When you're done with this video, go and check that out to know what I did for the padding. Alright, so like I said, I've padded it. This is the back. I ironed it. I ironed Este to it. That's fusible woven interfacing. Please make sure you see the video. So this is the center piece. I padded it too, and I've done the same thing to the sides. All right, so now the next thing is to cut the lining. All right, now I'm going to iron gum to my lining. Okay, so basically what you do now is iron before you cut the patterns for it. So I'm going to simply iron. So now I'm going to simply make a fold. Okay, I'm going to simply make a fold like so, and then I'm going to place my pattern on top of it, and I'm going to cut it out. All right, so I'm simply making a fold. All right, now you see what I've just done here. You see what I've just done to the side. Okay, put it on the fold, cut, and I have 2 sides for this. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the same thing for this part here, okay, for the back and for the center piece. Remember, as for the center piece, when you fold, make sure you push this edge that is sealed towards an edge that is sealed like this. Okay, so So when you are folding, once again, you fold just like what we did on the fabric. Make sure here is sealed when you place this one on top, so that it will come out as it will come out joined together. Okay, so I'm going to simply cut for here and cut for here. Okay, so I've cut the lining for everywhere. So what we have here is the back. Okay, so we have two sides of the back, and we have two sides of the lining. The same thing, this is the lining for the front, and then for the side of the front we have two sides of the lining. Okay, so let's head over to the table. The first place we're going to start stitching is the back. All right, so here I have the both sides of my back. Whatever I do to this side, make sure you repeat on the other side. Okay, so this side here with the slight slant. Okay, this side it has a slight slant. This is the side, and this area here that is very straight is my zipper allowance. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is from the side here, I'm going to keep 2.5 inches. Okay, I'm going to keep 2.5 inches from the edge here, 2.5 inches. All right, so from the edge 2.5 inches, I'm going to stitch from here all the way down half an inch. All right, so from here all the way to the zipper allowance. Remember, this area here with the slants is the side, this side here is the zipper allowance. All right, so when you're done with that, the next step is to hold the darts. Okay, so I made a notch on the fabric on where the dart is supposed to fall. You can see it on the black here, you can see it on the white here, on the fabric here. So I'm going to come from here. You see this, I'm simply just folding it. That's where the notch is. You see this part here where the notch is, I'm folding it there, I'm folding it at this area. Now remember, at the bottom of the dart we started from half an inch. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start from half an inch, taper it to nothing at this point. Okay, and then open it up. So watch closely. So you notice how here slanted into this place. Okay, look at half an inch here to nothing. By the time I hit this line I have here, it became nothing. Now from here I'm going to open it up to half an inch. Okay, now the next step is to close my zipper allowance. Okay, so I have my zipper allowance here. I'm going to start from here, from the bottom, run half an inch. This is the side, this is my zipper allowance here. This side here is the side. You can notice the curve that we have there. Now I'm going to run half an inch from the bottom here all the way to the top. Right, and then we're going to turn everything inside out. Now the next step is to go to my ironing table. I'm going to go and press this part now completely flat. Whatever I do to this side of the back, make sure you repeat the same thing on the other side. Alright, so you can see the back. Okay, these are the two sides of my back. I have that side here and I have that side here. Alright, so now the next step is to join the pieces of the fronts together. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, as you can see, this is my front and my lining. The first part I'm going to join is my lining, and then join the lining together. Now please make sure that you always start from the bottom and seal all the way to the top. The same thing I do on this side is what I'm going to repeat on the other side of the bust. Okay, so I'm going to align the bottom like so, and then I'm going to stitch from here all the way to the top half an inch. So I've stitched it together. You can see the lining has already formed a bust. Okay, I don't know if the camera is picking it up, but there is a curve here. What I want you to do is I want you to come to the half cut. Okay, so you see the half cut area here. I want you to make a notch at the half cut area. You see this, and then we're going to stitch from here all the way up to the top. All right, so from the bottom I'm going to stitch on this side. Okay, on the side, not on the center piece, on the side. Push all the excess that I have underneath here towards the side and stitch on the side from here all the way up. I'm simply just stop stitching my excess to one side. Okay, so you can see this side has a bust. Okay, I've top stitched on top of the excess, on top of my excess I had inside. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat the exact same thing on this side. Okay, so I'm done with the other side. It's time for us to do the same thing to the fabric. Alright, so you see the fabric that we have here. So basically what I did before, I'm going to stitch here from the bottom all the way up to the top half an inch. Okay, so this is is what we'll have at the end of the day. Okay, we're going to need to take this to the ironing table and iron it, but I'm going to show you guys how I do that. But before I go to the table, I'm going to join the other side. It's basically the same thing that I did before. Alright, so here you can see the part that we just stitched. Okay, now I didn't show you guys the lining. This is what the lining looks like. Alright, this is what the lining of this part here looks like. You can see it has a bust. Okay, now what I have done here that I'm yet to do here is to cut and iron this place. Alright, so you see this, you're going to come to where your wadding stopped, okay, and you're going to make a notch where your fusible fleece interfacing stops. It's also known as wadding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to iron here flat. You see this part that I just notched at the half cut there? I'm going to sprinkle a lot of water on it, and then I'm going to iron it flat. When you're sure that this is completely flat, you're going to cut a piece of your woven fusible interfacing stay. This is lightweight woven fusible interfacing. It's very light and it's transparent. Okay, you're going to cut a piece like this that's big enough to cover that part that you just iron flat. You're going to cover it like so, and then you're going to iron it down. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing to this top part. I'm going to spread an iron here completely flat. For that, you're going to need a tailor's ham, something like this, or a breast ball, whatever you call it. You're going to need to, you see the way you drag, I'm dragging it so that the fabric underneath, okay, lays completely flat. So the fabric under here stays completely flat. Okay, then I'm going to iron this all the way down. Then when you're done with that, you're going to do the same thing you did to the bottom part. You're going to cut a piece of your stay. Please, it should be at least 2.5 to 3 inches wide. If you have something as big as what I have here, it's not going to go wrong or anything. Okay, so as you can see, this is long enough to go all the way down. I'm taking the side of the interfacing that has the glue on it, and I'm going to use that to iron this flat. As you can see, the bust is staying up permanently. Okay, all right, so now the next thing I'm going to do is, you see this part here, okay, this is the bust that we just finished padding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lining, all right, and I'm going to place the front side of the lining facing the front side of the fabric. I'm going to join them together at the top here, okay, half an inch all the way across, but I'm going to keep a space of 2.5 inches, okay, of 2 inches, sorry, before I start to stitch across. And then I'm going to now make notches. So when you're done with that, I'm going to turn everything inside out. Okay, so when I turn everything inside out, I'm going to go to my table now and iron this before I continue. Alright, so I've ironed the top parts. As you can see, there's a smoothness to it. I've ironed everything completely flat. Now remember, I kept 1.5 inch of allowance, so I'm going to have to hold 1.5 inch of allowance. So I'm going to show you guys an example with this side. But the same, but whatever I did to this side should be repeated on the other side that we have here. Okay, so let me show you guys what we're going to do. Remember, first of all, we stitched only the lining. Okay, we didn't hold the fabric. So see this, I've separated both linings. I've moved the linings away. I'm going to simply now run 1.5 from here all the way down. Okay, and then we're going to join the lining the same way, 1.5. So now that I'm done with that, what you see is that you have your fabric here, okay, and you would have your lining here. Okay, so now I'm going to go and iron this lining completely flat like this. I'm also going to iron the fabric on this side completely flat. All right, so now the next step is I'm going to, so you see this part here, this is the bust side, this is the back. You can see the dots that we have here. I've ironed here flat. Also the lining, the joining I made on the lining has been ironed flat. So so you see this black line that we have here, I'm going to stitch from this black line across to this other part. Okay, and with that, by the time I turn this around, you will see that we have completely finished this part here. Okay, so you see this part here, we have joined the back to this side. All right, so you see this is the bust area, this is the bust area, this is the back. Okay, everything has been joined, everything is laying flat. If I turn it inside out, you see here is all smooth, there's no rough work showing on this part too. So whatever I've done here, I'm going to simply repeat here. Okay, so now you can see I have joined this side, and also this side has been joined. I've joined this side as well. Look at how smooth and clean that is. Now I'm going to simply just run a line at the hem. Okay, this is just a ½ inch line. I'm not going to backstitch at the beginning or the end. This is just to bind my fabric and my lining together permanently. The next thing now is for us to make the gathers at the bottom and create the slits. Okay, so now the dress length I'm working with is 62. So my the length of my anchor is 45, so there's no need to cut anything off. The total amount of fabric I'm using to work on this project is 3 yards. Okay, and I've consumed 2.5 trying to make the top here, so I have 2.5 left here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're supposed to gather fabric all over here until we get to this dot. Okay, because I want the slits to be on the right side, okay, on the right leg. So I'm going to need to make pleats all the way to here. Okay, and then I'm now going to make another pleat from here to here. But what we're going to do is this: I have 2.5 inches of fabric left. I'm going to cut off 1 inch and use for the short side, because look at the distance from here to here. Okay, from the end here to this dot here, it's a lot shorter than the distance from here, from this end here all the way to here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off 1 yard, sorry, and I'm going to use that 1 yard from here to here, and then the remaining 1.5 is going to cover from here to here. Remember, I told you I have 2.5 inch yards of material. So if I subtract 1 inch for the short side from here, I'm left with 1.5 that will be used for the long side. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to measure out 1 yard and cut it out. Okay, so now that I've cut it out, now you see this part here is going to sit with this, and this part here is going to sit with this. Okay, so sides. Now what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to seal them back to where I want my slits to be. All right, so now the first thing you need to do is you need to know where you want your slit to stop. Okay, so now from the shoulder to where I want my slit to stop is 36 inches. Okay, now I know that from up here, from where the shoulder was to this half cut area here is 16 inches. Okay, that's 16 inches already. By the time I want to join these two together and stop at a particular place, I will need to stitch down extra 20 inches. The time I will stitch down and lock at 20 inches, I would have sealed 36. Okay, so I'm going to join these two sides here together from here all the way down, and when I get to 20 inches here, I'm going to stop. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start stitching from here all the way. I'm going to start stitching from here all the way down by 20 inches. Now remember, when you want to seal it, you don't seal ½ an inch. I want it to seal 1 inch. Okay, so now when you're done with that, you see this part here, we've sewn 1 inch from the top here. Remember, we need extra 20. Look at it there, it stopped exactly at 20 inches. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to come to the bottom. Now I want you to come to the bottom and seal all the way to the top. You see this, you fold ½ an inch and then fold ½ an inch again. We're going to start sewing from here, the bottom, all the way to the top. And you stitch when you get to the part where that 20 inches stopped. You stop there, leave your needle inside like I did, make an angle, and you can stitch across. If you kept only if you join them by only ½ an inch, by the time you get to the top here, that would have been too small. Okay, now I'm going to simply stitch from here all the way down ½ an inch. So now I'm going to join this part of my gathers to the bodice. What you see now, we have made the slits. Okay, let me show you guys something. You see this? We have now neatly made the slits. Okay, so now it's time to make the gathers on top of the bodice. Okay, so you see this part here, this side is where the short side is, where the long side, sorry, is supposed to sit. All right, so we're going to start from there. You see this? I'm going to simply make gathers with this from the bottom all the way to the top here. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is, remember we kept 2 inches for my zipper allowance. I kept 2 inches for my zipper allowance, but I've consumed half an inch when I was making this turning here, so I have only 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance. So at the beginning there, I'm not going to gather the first 1.5 inches because I know that my zip will take all of that in. Okay, so I'm going to first stitch the first 1.5 flat. When I've exceeded the 1.5, I'm going to now start making gathers. Please make your gathers consciously as you go along. So now I've gotten to the joining. Okay, if I flip this over, you will see that where I have my joining, I don't know if the machine is picking it up, if the camera is picking it up, where I have my joining is sitting exactly on the same line of where I wanted it to sit. Okay, I'm going to continue making my gathers. Please when you get to the end, make sure that you stitch the 1.5 inches flat and smooth. Look at this, I'm not gathering the 1.5 inches. I'm just going to seal it smoothly all the way down. So with that, if I turn to the front, you would see that I have my slits. All right, where's the slit? Where's my slit? Where's my slit? Where's my slit? Okay, so you will see that, you see the side of the bust here on the right, you can see this. Look at the slits is right here. Okay, the next thing is to fix the zipper. Okay, now we kept 1.5 inches of zipper allowance. I'm still going to hold my zipper allowance by 1.5. all right, so now I'm going to attach my zipper. Okay, now this is pretty elementary, so I'm going to speed this part up. If you want to see how I draft a zipper, click on this video, or wait until you get to the end, click on the end notes that you would see. And with that, we are done with the dress. Okay, and with that, we are done with the dress. As you can see, I've installed the zipper at the back. So I hope you guys try this out. Good luck to you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.